The regular and virtual meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, October 18th, 2021. It is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll? Here. Commissioner Wright is here virtually.
I'm here.
Okay, Commissioners, there is one change to the agenda that I know of. Item number 4, the Ocean Strand temporary construction easement, it has been taken off. Is there anything else that you would like to change? Okay. It is now time for public requests. If you'd like to step to the podium and state your name and address, we'd love to hear from you. Chaffee?
My name is Harold. That's better. I'm learning. My name is Harold Chappie, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue, in Boca Raton, Florida. I read the document that you're going to supply to the I guess the designer. I noticed in there was maybe I misconstrued it, but it only had one place in it that we're going to meet the public to explain to them what they were going to do. They'll just present it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Find the list of tasks and.
I know there was 5 meetings with, I think the city, city recreation, somebody else like that. And then Greg Ganis. The other thing too is why am I not invited to that?
Well, you're invited to any public meeting that we have, but it's up to the board to decide, like the language that was used is groups such as, because this board will be the deciding factor of who meets with them in those 3 different meetings. But there's a visioning workshop number 1 for the public to attend. There's a master plan workshop number 2 for the public to attend. And of course they'll be here, but there's going to be opportunities for you to come. Any of those meetings that they have with these different groups will be open to the public.
Okay, no, it just said that there was 5 meetings. Right, I had to ask because I didn't know whether they're private meetings, open meetings, whatever, you know. All right, thank you.
Be private meetings because of sunshine law, but that will just be a one-on-one with the Miller Lake and.
Yeah, well, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Right. But I was wondering about the one where you had the 5 meetings with the 3 different groups. You know, you said community-oriented groups.
Yeah, it says such as, and we listed, I think, Federation of Homeowners, Boca Golf Association, and maybe if the board wants, you could meet with them because you guys are kind of on the same path as far as what you'd like to see out there, and it may
Well, I
be
am
a good
a legal
opportunity.
502 a nonprofit organization.
Right, and I think they are too. I think the Boca Golf Association is too.
Yes, they
but-
are too, yes.
But the Federation of Homeowners, all those meetings are public meetings that they would
Okay.
attend. The workshop is another public meeting for the city council that was listed.
All right, thank you very much.
You're always welcome at our meetings, Mr. Chaffee. You know that. Hi, Marcy.
Today is his birthday. Today is his birthday.
Happy birthday. We should have brought a cake. Would anyone else like to speak? All righty. Marcy, did you care to speak? Oh, well, happy birthday to you. All righty. Well, seeing no one else stepping up, public requests are now closed. It's time to approve the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on October 4th, 2021. Do I hear a motion, please? Thank you. A second, please. Thank you. Any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote to approve? Yes. Commissioner Wright?
Commissioner Wright?
Yes. Sorry, I can't hear her.
I'll have to say it.
All righty. Our first item of regular business is the Boca Chica Miller Lake Agreement found on page 5 of your agenda packet. Brianne, would you like to lead us off, please? And
Sure.
welcome to Miller Lake.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, on page 5 is the agreement for professional services with Middle Lake for the master planning of the Boca Chica property, Ocean Breeze. It goes through the agreement, also includes 2 exhibits. Exhibit A is the scope of services, as well as Exhibit B, which was the RFQ that we put out there. And Mike Kroll is here from Miller Lake to answer any questions that you may have.
Would you like to step up to the podium to answer any questions? We'll start off with Commissioner Engel. Do you have any questions? Okay, Commissioner Ernst?
Michael, thank you for your proposal and working through the agreement.
Sure.
I guess the first question out of the box, and I think you've got most of them addressed here. When we decided in rank order to select Miller Lake, we said that, at least I jotted down 8 criteria. And those 8 criteria, that just as a refresher, was, number 1 being the highest quality services at the best cost. So I'm going to give you a check the box that,
Okay.
that I assume that's been worked out.
Yes.
Number 2 was seek financially sustainable uses or alternatives,
Yes.
and that is a priority for us.
Yes.
Is that somewhere in your agreement here? And
Absolutely.
so,
Yep. Let's see. I just want to make sure where we would put that. So one of the things is funding opportunities. On page 7 is one of those things. And we talk about different funding mechanisms in addition to leases, grants, bonding, user fees, as well as P3 delivery mechanisms. So
okay,
looking at all in kind of a broad spectrum rather than just here's how we fund this from a capital perspective.
right,
So looking
okay.
at
So,
those.
I mean, and I think that gives us the opportunities, but I just want to clarify, for us, we're a limited body.
Right.
We're a limited things that we can do. It's 212 acres. And so there are constraints. We know there are constraints, but those constraints shouldn't limit you because it's got to be a community development to find out what is the right thing. It
Correct.
shouldn't be guided too hard,
Correct.
but you have physical land constraints. So that's one part of it.
Okay.
The statistical survey you have in here,
Yes.
I saw that, and just a question from my own, I saw the postcards and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Sounds a little old school to me. Is this going to work statistically?
Absol-
And are you going to get all people who want to contribute, kind of through the mail or through?
Yes.
How are you going to
so-
do this?
So again, okay, so that's a great question. So a couple of things. So the postcard is just that. It's a postcard saying there's a mailer coming out. Okay. We follow up with that with an actual mail out questionnaire. In that mail out questionnaire, there's also a link and a QR code that you can click like that. And you have a geo-referenced link to a survey that would tie it to you as the recipient. Okay.
Okay.
So we use both digital and hard copy. So you can either mail it in, and if we get it from you mailed in and we've already got it from you on the QR code, we know that. So there can't be any duplicity there. Okay,
Okay.
so that can be skewed. In addition, we also do if we don't have responses back from the mail out, we'll actually have reach out to them via phone to ensure that they received it, and if they need a new copy, or to give them instructions on where to get that. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a follow-up that way. The next step is that we also have an open access survey
Okay.
that we will open to the public. So what this helps us do is we have a sample size, very specific sample size that we're sending out that we anticipate that many people will respond to, and that will give us the statistically valid responses.
Okay.
But in order to reinforce that percentage, we have open access. So everybody can respond to that open access survey. They can it's going to be the same type of questions in that open access survey that they're going to give their responses to us. So again, big mail out, we'll get about that many responses, usually 10% or so.
And that's random.
That's random.
Total
That is
random.
random throughout the study area.
Okay. And
So-
that random, it's random to the district or to the city?
It will be to the district limits.
Okay.
Okay. So it includes the city plus the additional district area.
Okay.
Okay. So it is random based upon that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then we had number 4 here is community meetings. I recall seeing some community meetings in there, and
Absolutely.
and in honor of Harold Chaffee's birthday, I'd like to make sure that you personally meet with Harold Chaffee, because Harold Chaffee has been to every one of these meetings from the beginning of time. So
Fantastic.
Although we may have different opinions of things, he's
Mhm.
been through all of it. So I respect, we all
Yep.
have the same goal. So-
Absolutely.
So, and there is some weight towards the Boca Chica residents because they live there.
Right.
I mean, it's hard for someone who lives on the, the Hillsborough
west,
Canal to
right.
tell, someone
Mhm.
on the other end of it, the C-15 canal,
Right.
what they can do with their property.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely. But that is part of it, again, the engagement, via the survey, but also direct engagement through the workshops and the individual meetings and the focus groups.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then I had number 5 here, identify vehicle parking and access points.
Mhm.
Where's that in here? Is this, you're gonna do that for us? I mean,
Absolutely. And I'm just going to see here where I think parking and access. So it's on page 7
Okay.
in task 12.
Okay,
So it does say parking access and vehicular circulation. So where they're going to be entering and having access to Boca Chica,
yep,
where they're going to be parking, what the magnitude of the parking will be, et cetera. Yes, so we will
Okay.
be addressing that.
okay. And you know that we're in Boca, we don't allow car dealerships, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, okay. So, okay, check.
No car dealers.
You're gonna seek grant and community partnerships.
Correct.
So I think that was somewhere under the P3.
Yep, so
part of it.
that's funding opportunities as well as when we first start looking at it, information analysis. Trying to think here, we usually have that in here. But yes, that is, we're talking about different agreements and things that we can
Yeah.
have. as
And,
part of the
and
analysis.
that honestly is the complicated part of it for a lot of it. I'm not talking about, there's lots of builders who want to build something,
Sure.
but I want to, bring back the message, we bought this to preserve green space.
Absolutely.
We are, for recreation.
Mhm.
So there's a balance of all the things that have to go on with it. But please note that, there's a lot of constituents, in it. And so we have the Palm Beach School Board with their
Right.
viewpoint of what, given security and things are going on, what
Mhm.
they need, what they want to have happen at the schools and what we are supporting in a local leagues type thing. So
Right.
there's a lot of balance of different things. And then you have other third parties who have commercial interests.
Sure,
in it.
absolutely.
So, okay, check the
Okay,
box on that
yes.
one.
Mhm.
And so the last one, or number 7 was the seeking for nonprofits. It leaving something out there. And I don't know what that is. It's
Okay.
just kind of.
Sure, and I think that some of those are partnerships. Some of those will go to the programming side of things.
Yep.
Where a lot of those nonprofits will focus on specific either recreational, environmental, or educational aspects, and how do they fold into the ultimate program? So yes, that's part of the whole approach on this.
Okay.
That would be.
Okay. So, I mean, it can be both. It doesn't have to be programming. It's a reserved area for them,
Sure.
but it's open.
Absolutely.
And then the last one was city elected participation.
Mhm.
And I know that you have them in a workshop,
Yes.
and that's for my colleagues and I to discuss, but I do encourage a one-on-one with each of the city council members, and I would like to see that because although, we're technically the ones who bought the property and everything,
Right.
we will make a decision on it. Bottom line is, we're partners in this thing,
Sure.
and we're going to be even stronger partners on it because they are, elected and hearing more directly. They run the staff. They have all
Right.
the public community meetings. They're a little bit different body. We are a taxing authority.
Right.
So, I have a different viewpoint than maybe some of my peers on that, but I
Okay.
want to be sure that they have full, direction to you.
Okay.
And there are some clauses that I don't know if this is the time to go through those, but I do want to mention them. As far as the contractual things, that I would like to see kind of adjusted in it. But among those was, I can read them off quickly and I don't want to take too much of your time. You've answered
That's
all my
okay.
questions, Michael, so stay
Okay,
there though.
sure,
But,
no problem.
From a contractual thing, what I guess I would like is, I think the contract should be assignable to the city if we decide to do that. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm just saying I think it's important. I also think the contract should address any conflicts of interest or employee participation from your team, and community advocacy groups. The reason I say that is if you have a member of your team who is, been following this whole program and happens to live at Boca Chica and says, I really, really want to have a balloon launch there.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to do. I just want transparency that
Absolutely.
your team is totally unbiased in what they're
Sure.
doing and just giving us your best opinion of everything.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that-
these are things that Jake or, between
Sure.
collectively, we can
Sure.
review. And then, okay, you answered my other question. City council, I would like the city council interviewed separately because I think a workshop is nice, but they may not have all their thoughts together. And I think you really need to listen to them to say what they think
Okay.
on that part of it. The sub-consultants mentioned only two, but I think you had others. There was someone RPC or something. Something was,
RRC, yes.
there were two mentioned, but
I'm sorry, that they were, RRC is actually listed
right.
in the survey one, but we can add them
If
to
they're a
that one
sub-consultant,
section.
you got to put them in the sub-consultant, but that raised the
Absolutely.
question of the two sub-consultants that are there. One was an environmental firm and another one was the True Golf or something like
True,
that.
yeah. And so a couple of things. So Terracon, who is the environmental and geotechnical group, that's pretty critical because we need to know what kind of soils we're dealing with out here, especially if there's any arsenic issues, because that really addresses or leads to how we handle soil, which ultimately leads to costs and ultimately leads to a capital improvement plan that we put together for you. So how do we have to handle that soil? What can we do with it on the site? And if you have that soil in certain locations, it can limit the potential development or use of that area unless you remove that material. So we want to make sure that that's done. And why we selected that team is they did the geotechnical work for the Fazio or the Price Fazio team. So they have the information. So they, in essence, we're using that information. We're not repaying for someone to redo that analysis for us.
Okay, so you don't, I guess, that's kind of the cart before the horse. To me, that's a constraint. And I don't want you to be constrained about anything that you're doing. And so it was an environmental catastrophe across the street from where I live when they lined up at Marcy knows, they lined up about 8 bulldozers that looked like, a scene out of Rio. It was just horrible. And have them parked on Military Trail as they plowed everything up.
Right.
I'm not in favor of that, but I also don't want to get deep into another environmental deal and subcontracting with someone who is, can you use the information that you already have? And then this is a later phase type thing to define it.
We can use the information that they did for Price Fazio.
Yep.
But they didn't do the arsenic analysis. They did the geotechnical, which gives us the strata, the different soils and things like that. So we really just need to know how significant or insignificant that is. And we can limit them to what they look at, but it's not going to drive our decisions. In essence, we're going to develop a master plan that makes the most sense from a program and geographic perspective on the site. And then we're going to analyze from there. Okay, if we say this is going to be an open play area where children may be in contact with that soil, this 5 acres that we allocate for that, we're going to have to move that material over here, that type of thing, because that's very important for the district to understand. If we want to make sure that the plan is implementable, can be implemented. We don't just want a pretty picture at the end of the day that when we get into it, we say, wow, we have $5 million of earthwork we've got to do, to facilitate the plan. We want to know that up front, but it will not drive our master plan. It will inform us on evaluating that for you, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure it's valid.
Okay, that's kind of concerning, to be honest with you, because if you come back and say the whole area is covered with arsenic, what are you going to do with it? It's going to only be a golf course? Is that what?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, there's different things, and again, depends. Arsenic is found inert in our soil. So what are those levels? And this golf course has been fallow for quite a while. So again, what are those things? And just give us some guidance on where are the I'll just say hot spots, if you want to call it that, because a lot of them probably are not. And if they're just open passive areas, it could be fine.
Okay, well, I just be guided on what you spend with environmental people, because that could burn through everything. And
Absolutely.
I would like to at least make sure that our district executive is kind of overseeing what's
Absolutely.
how much work is being done.
Sure.
on
And
that.
we'll go through that with Brianne on when we get to actually looking at what they're going to be reviewing and inspecting out there.
Yep,
And that's one of the reasons that we put them as kind of optional services off to the right there.
okay,
So we had a lump, and by them, we talked to them, we want to use your old report, we want you to analyze this, and this. So we can get from, more detailed proposal, and then we'll go over with Brianne and make sure that it's,
Okay.
it's under that, and it doesn't give us too much information that we don't need.
good, good. And then the last part is that leads us to the true golf solution. I mean,
Right.
we're going into this, at least I'm going into this with no conceived notions. Are you coming back with Jack Nicholas? We
No.
turned down Jack Nicholas as
No,
the
absolutely not.
the master planner. So
Right.
what are they gonna do and what's your plan here?
And again, they're under the umbrella of Troon Golf, but what they actually do is they have different arms of their industry, of their company. And the group that we are engaging under this as a sub-consultant talks about I'll say club or recreational activities from a management and operational perspective. So what does it cost, or what do they need for the operations, ongoing operations? What are the P3 opportunities, especially in that market, racket sports, food and beverage, those types of things. So that when we're getting into this and really starting to look at the financial opportunities and funding opportunities for this, those are the guys that are in that market. That's kind of their specialty. And it doesn't matter if they're under Troon Golf, but it doesn't have to be golf. It can be an aquatic facility, but they'll understand the operations, maintenance, and financing side of things, operations, food and beverage, those types of things. That's really what they're into. Okay.
I mean, I just don't want to be limited to
Oh,
that
absolutely.
group, so I would tell you, don't limit us either. with
Oh,
that.
absolutely. And I made that
Yeah.
point very clear to them. I said, there may not be any golf at this place. And so we don't.
Yeah,
care.
we don't know. That's-
We're
Yeah.
going to look at it. We'll look at it, whatever you ask us to look at from an operation and fundraising perspective, they're going to help us with.
Again, the only caveat where contractually is that you don't go too far, too deep, too quick with that party, because we need you to do the front work, all the other tasks. And this is really towards the end. We're
Absolutely.
coming closer to, okay, yeah, we do want a golf course. This
Right.
is- Or yes, we want something, a
Mhm.
component. Okay, fine, then,
Absolutely.
okay.
And I think we're on the same wavelength, because when we first started talking to them, I shared the scope with them, and they said, well, we'll be involved here, here, here. And I said, no, you won't be involved really until we get to after phase 5, which is the visioning, where we're going to have the information from the community, from the district, from the city, and our constituents, and we come up with a program. So here Troon, here's our program. This is what we want to do. Let's talk about how we can fund this and operate this. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rollins, would you like to weigh in?
Sure would. I'll be first to admit, Mike, I do have preconceived ideas about what I want over on this facility.
Okay.
It's hard not to do that
Sure.
after listening to the public for the number of years that we've had. I won't share with you publicly what those ideas are, but if you've been listening to our
Yes.
meetings, you'll understand where I'm coming
I
from.
understand. Yes.
There are a lot of things that have to be accomplished, and on the timeline that you have put it there, the schedule of different phases. And I want to encourage you to stay on track, because we don't want to rush this, but we want to stay on track with our timeline and make sure that, I mean, we're all anxious to get something done, as is the public. And so I would just ask you to be as conscious of the time as possibly can in meeting with people, setting up the schedules, the charrettes or whatever that you have in mind to engage the public. Just do that and stay on track.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
There's a lot of talk about P3s, and is that something you've done, a number of P3s?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, we have some limitations in that, and I think you need to, stay close with Brianne in that, and engaging our attorney on that, because there's a lot of things that don't fall within our enabling legislation, and I don't want to jump too fast on that, but when we get to that point, I want to have that issue resolved if that becomes
Okay.
something.
Definitely.
The one area that I look at in any contracts, and Craig did a very thorough job, and I commend him for taking the time to do that. That was very responsive for him to do that. I look at the insurance aspect of this,
Okay.
since that's kind of my background.
Mhm.
And is this a contract that you typically use, or did we have an input in
Well, it
that?
was typical from the district,
okay.
but we did review it. We reviewed it with our insurance coverage carrier, our attorney and everything. So
Okay.
it's pretty standard language. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the question I have, it's on page 9 of our packet, page 5 of 19 of the contract. It talks about the consultant's aggregate limit shall not exceed the amount of insurance required to be placed in pursuant, is what we outlined as the maximum. Then if you go down to the paragraph under Article 7 insurance, it says the consultant expressly understands and agrees that any insurance protection required by this agreement or otherwise provided by the consultant shall in no way limit the responsibility to identify and save harmless to district or its officers. Is that saying that should there be an issue that due to the exhausting of your limits of liability, that we'll still have protection and indemnification from you regardless of whether the insurance company has been
Absolutely.
exhausted by another claim? Okay. And the other portion that I like I said, the subcontractors will similarly have the same insurance and they will be approved. Is that something that you approve?
Yes. Yes.
And you'll
And we
concur?
always make this agreement will be part of their sub-consultant agreement. So they have to abide by these same criteria.
Okay. This is what I didn't understand. It says, I'm looking at page 7 and 7.6.3.1. If consultant requests reduced limits under a personal auto liability policy, and it is agreed to by the district, is that something that you would normally do? Ask
No.
us? Okay, so
No.
that's not going to come before us. in
No.
other words. Okay.
No.
All right. And I'm glad to see that you're including cyber liability, because that's a hot topic within the industry.
100%.
And I don't know that you'll have our personal identifying information that can be exposed and leaked, but I think that's good.
Right.
On page 8 of 19, you have required endorsements, and one that I particularly was interested in is a waiver of all rights of subrogation against the district. That applies both to the general liability and the workers' comp?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I believe you get an A on the insurance part of the
Okay.
contract. And I appreciate Craig stealing some of my thunder on his comments, but I'm not going to repeat them just for the sake of looking
Sure.
as smart as Craig did.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That answers my questions.
Thank you much.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I thought Craig covered a lot of stuff as usual. The only thing I was kind of looking for was any of the environmental sustainability aspects that will be, viable for the project in terms of, the green space and the whatever buildings potentially that are there, and then the partnerships that can be developed, like with FP&L and Solar Trees, or South Florida Water Management District and swales or something. I don't know. Should that be included somewhere in the Exhibit A as like something that can be focused on as a
Sure.
part of it?
Yeah, what we could do is we could actually add just a clause in maybe task 11 and task 12, where we get the preliminary and final master plan, is
Okay.
maybe integration of sustainability practices into the program that's going to be implemented through the master plan.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, any options that would be available, depending on, obviously no cost would be would be great, and then kind of like the low hanging fruit type stuff, and then stuff that we might say, well, if we want to spend a little extra money on something, those options could be available as well.
Absolutely. We can do
Okay.
that. Yes.
Thank you. Awesome.
Welcome. Thank you.
But besides that,
Commissioner
no other
Rollins has
comments.
one more question for you.
Okay.
Want to get further clarity on the survey that you're going to do, because the one that was last done on a recreational master plan study, there was quite a number of us that I know. I don't think I knew anybody that got that survey. And I want to be sure that, as Craig said, that we survey the district. Of course, give certain, with the neighbors, we're going to be certainly very conscious about what we put in there, and their input's going to be extremely important. But I want to make sure that, I think you said you're going to put this survey on the website, on our website.
We're going to have, again, the direct statistically valid survey goes out to random samples. So it goes out to addresses, physical addresses, and is followed up by phone calls and or a QR code that's a geo-reference to that response. Okay, so we can see where the responses came from and who responded. So we'll have that. The second thing is we'll have an open access survey, which I think is what you're talking about, which will be from your website. You can click on that link, go to that open access website, and it would open access survey, and you can respond to the survey questions.
Yeah. What do you consider the number of responses to be considered statistically accurate?
Okay, I knew somebody was going to ask me that question, and I'm not a statistician, but RRC, who that is their job, we are going to do about 5,000 mail outs for this study, and we anticipate we'll probably get about 500 responses, and that will give us statistically valid response. That'll make it statistically valid.
I'm not a statistician either, but it seems awfully
It
light
is.
for to be
It is.
have that high weight placed upon it.
Yep.
Well, I certainly would like to see in the analysis if you can record where the responses came from and analyze that. Whether it's on the ocean side, whether it's in this zip code in Boca Chica, and whether it's in the zip codes in our district area.
Sure.
So that we can, see exactly where people are and might be able to figure out why they answered the way they did.
Right. And I think actually we have kind of like a heat map that's generated from the survey that will show you where the actual responses are coming from. So, and then it's followed up by a report that says, here's the areas that responded and the number of responses we got from these various districts, et cetera. And I will say this, I know, and maybe I should go back to that. You said one of the things, stay on task, keep this process rolling. To be honest with you, this survey is the thing that will either drive or hold this process up the most, because in some communities, and I don't think we're going to have this issue in Boca, to be honest, but in some communities, we struggle to get responses to these surveys. And so we just did one in Tamarack, and different socioeconomic study area and such, but we had to delay the Parks and Rec master plan that we did for them by almost 3 months to get responses from that survey. I don't anticipate we'll have that issue with Boca, but again, that is one thing that we want to make sure it is a valid survey, so we push to get those number of responses.
You're going to get 500 responses from Boca Chica area alone.
Absolutely.
But seriously, if you must have some benchmarks along the way when you see that the responses are not coming in, and that's where I would say, put the pedal to the metal and some leather, and
Yes.
let's either phone call people but I really think that it's important that we, hit our stages of development. So inside of what are we looking at? A year's process from start to beginning?
Probably, yes.
So I want to finish this up, as early as possible, but certainly no later than a year from the date that we execute this. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we would hope to, if quite honestly, if we get number of responses very quickly, I see that the schedule could actually be compressed by 30 to 60 days easily.
Wonderful.
So again, one of the things that we would encourage not only the district, but the city, and that's one of the reasons that we want to meet with the city up front as early as possible. we want them to pump out, post at their parks, everything, survey online. If you get a survey, please respond, that type of thing. So getting that message out to the public that this is an important thing and have your voice heard, it's critical to get those responses.
Mike, and let's make it clear to the public, though, that this survey isn't the only thing driving our decision.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So yes. So if I could so this is really based upon public outreach. Survey is just one of those things.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
other aspects are interviews directly with the commissioners, working with the city, working with focus groups also in the community, and getting that information. So it's the survey, the open-ended survey, and that other input that's really going to start driving the program for the park.
Commissioner Engel and Commissioner Wright also have more questions. Commissioner Engel, would you like to start off, please?
Sure.
Thank you, and pardon my tardiness in asking you a question. Who generates your mailing list?
The mailing list will be generated from, who is it going to come from? It's probably going to come, where does RSC get there? I'm going to ask them.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they have like a targeted, they do it more spread, but they do have a targeted household, so it could be statistically valid. Geolocation on it,
Yeah.
and then they receive it, they use either the brewery, the statistically valid surveys, the ACS, or the American Survey,
Okay.
or they use
Census.
the census.
Okay.
They derive it from the census essentially.
Okay.
We'll work with them. They typically request, information from the municipality or the district on the boundaries, and then they'll actually georeference selected addresses from that.
Okay, and will they have return service on these cards?
They usually do.
Okay.
I think the survey does, the postcard doesn't. The postcard's just the initial send out, and I think the return is
All right.
I'll confirm that with you.
Okay, and also I would like to make sure that there's a do not forward,
Okay,
okay, because I don't want these things going to Wilmington, North Carolina.
right. Okay.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I had just had just clarification on task 2, the website setup and maintenance. So you'll have an actual like website for the project itself?
Yes, yes. It will be a web page. It'll just be a web page that will be accessed from the district's web page, and we'll probably also have a link maybe in the city Parks and Rec on their web page. They can probably come to that if you wanted to do that also. But it will be a separate standalone web page.
It will. Okay. And so like we can share that link with people that we know to be able to view it and see the progress that's happening and things like that. And then as each task goes along, will you update it as we kind of go? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's the intent of it, is really to disseminate the information of where we are in the process. Also, it will be a site where we'll advertise upcoming public workshops. Hey, save the date type thing. We're going to have a workshop on these days at these hours. So again, it's added communication. It's a web page that's dedicated solely to this process, to Ocean Breeze.
Okay. And it'll have a link to the survey as well as.
Absolutely. Yeah. To the open
Okay.
survey.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, will we be able to see the survey before it goes out?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. We'll share it with Brianne and all the questions and such, and we'll get input from the district on questions that you want to have in there.
How long is it going to be?
We try to make it not too extensively long, because that's a thing, if you get a survey in the mail or somewhere that's 150 questions, nobody answers those. But how many questions do we have? Like 20 questions.
Okay, good.
And there are focused questions so that we can extrapolate from the response what their actual intent is.
I think that's a great idea, but I also am going to encourage the public to come to our meetings as much as possible and give their wishes and their wants.
Absolutely.
Mr. Horowitz, did you have your hand up?
One comment, Madam Chair, if I could. So the item in your backup is the proposed professional services agreement that was negotiated and drafted pursuant to the CCNA. Over the course of the discussion this evening, I know there were a number of comments on the agreement itself, particularly Commissioner Ernst had several regarding assignments, conflict of interest. I didn't hear any objection from the gentleman from Miller Leg. If the board would approve the item tonight and there was no objection from the commission, I would ask that the item be approved as amended. We go and make those specific changes unless there was any particular concern with the questions and comments raised by Commissioner Ernst, revise the agreement, and that would be the final document without having to bring it back to the board for further consideration.
I do have a question for Commissioner Ernst. We are a separate independent taxing body. These are our decisions that have to be made. I do agree that we need input from city council, but adding to the scope of work and increased fees to have individual meetings with the city council, you are our keeper of the treasury. So I just have a question why we couldn't do this in a workshop type of situation where we could have everybody there with Mr. Kroll or one of his representatives.
My thought on it was just give the city council people the option, bring them along as a partner, bring them as a collaborative process rather than getting kind of blindsided like we did last time. And so I'd rather let them talk individually with the people. If they choose to, they may not want to, and it can be in a workshop. But I'd like to give our city elected, this option because they have a trump card on the whole thing. Is that they don't approve the plan, they don't approve the plan. And that's kind of where we got stuck last time. So why not? I have no problem. Harold Chaffee can meet with them too. I want the people who've been involved with seeing, the Boca Chica property to have full access and let Mike and his team go with it. I don't want to get involved in your survey. I don't want to bias the questions. I want you guys to run with it and, give us your best opinion on what you see and what you hear and full access. And I don't want to hear later that, well, you didn't include us. And so that's by choice. That's the only reason why.
You heard that to date? That they want to be included?
I think we've all heard over the past 2 years why, delays and what, you did things on your own, you remember how we did the 19 architects? I felt like we did a thorough job. And then afterwards, we're sitting up there in front of taxpayers with the millage rate increase. And there's people saying you didn't include us. And so I think let's take that off the table. Let's just give everyone plenty of access. It may cost a little bit more, but I'm okay with it. And that's why I suggested it.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Kroll? Commissioner Wright.
Where would that take place? The individual, there's visioning workshop number 1. Would it take place at the inventory program district meetings? I'm confused on where they would be talking to the city.
It's the task 3, I think.
Task 3, yes. We'll be in task 3.
Okay. So that's when you would talk to us individually and the city council members individually.
Second paragraph under task 3.
Okay.
Meetings with the district commissioners, and currently it says 1 regularly scheduled city council workshop.
So would we do individual meetings and do the workshop, or I'm confused?
That would be up to you. I mean, typically you would meet with the council members individually, but if you wanted to follow up with a workshop or.
I mean, I'm just, I don't know if all of them would want individual meetings. Like if they don't, then we don't have a meeting with that council member, you know what I mean? So I'm curious what everybody wants to do with that.
My recommendation is just give them the option and do both. I mean, I really don't see a harmful thing of over communicating, at least getting that feedback. It's just being on the agenda or not, and getting the individual feedback. That's fine. If they, I think they can probably see our past meetings here, and they don't even need to meet with us, to be honest with you. But that's fine. Well,
sure.
Feedback.
Okay.
Is that all, Commissioner Wright?
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Engel?
Yeah, I was going to agree with Commissioner Ernst for a change. I think the more transparency, the better off we are. And one of the things that we've said to the city is you need to be more transparent with us. So now the shoe's on the other foot. If we're not doing the same thing for them, then we kind of look hypocritical. And I want to give them every opportunity to give us their input as to, what they would like and what they don't like about the plan. Let us hash it out. I don't want, I don't want to have, well, you didn't come to us, we didn't get our say type of thing. I think it's in our best interest to avoid that.
Mr. Rollins?
Mike, and I'm sure you will, I just encourage you to maintain your neutrality in any of these discussions because there's landmines out there and you're on a tightrope there with this discussion that,
Right.
The ultimate decision on what we want to have collaborative or otherwise would be here of what we would finally vote on it after listening to council and the public and the workshops and what the commissioners have in mind. So it's like the Gordian knot, really, so just, I know you will, I know you do a good job. I do want the city council to have some input and listen to what they have to say. How much or anything that we agree or disagree with, there's 5 of us here and we're not always 100% in agreement, but, majority rules. So,
Right.
and so I think Craig's right, and Steve too. In spite of the fact that we've been pretty transparent, our meetings have been broadcast. You can see them on YouTube. You could hear what we had to say if you were interested in finding out. And but I don't want there to be any neglect on our part in making sure that they get this extra care that we provide for them to provide input.
Okay, all right. So am I understanding we'll do individual and a workshop, or would you just be comfortable with individual?
Individual, and if they don't participate individually, offer the workshop.
Okay. Okay.
So as Mr. Horowitz said, we have an agreement that can be modified with the changes, but we can agree to, if it's your pleasure to have a motion to accept this agreement with the modifications.
I'll make a motion to accept the agreement with modifications as approved by the executive director and Jake. Is that good enough?
It's good enough for me.
Do I hear a
Second.
second? Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
And if I may, just very quickly, Madam Chair, I just want to
Absolutely,
confirm
Mr. Horowitz.
that the representative from OLEG, there was no objection to any of the comments from the commission, to the extent that we'll make changes, present a revised version to you, but the objective is to not bring this back to the board.
Sure.
That'll be approved as amended. Did you have any particular concerns with any of the comments?
Could you just read back what those, not all the points, but I think just the contractual type?
Sure. The contractual items were the assignability, so the agreement would be assignable to the city.
I think that would be fine. Yeah.
We would add some conflict of interest language.
Oh, absolutely. No
No
problem.
interest there.
Yes.
And those were the two. I know that Commissioner Rollins had some comments on the insurance, but there were no changes that were directed as an outgrowth of that. And then there were some of the operational provisions that Ms. Harms will work on with you directly
Yes.
regarding the business terms of the scope of
Yes,
work. But I
absolutely.
didn't hear any objection there. The
No
legal terms
objection.
were the assignment and the conflict.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Rollins?
Just have one question. When we're talking about the assignment of the scope of services that were in the contract we're talking about, what did you have in mind with that, Craig? Because we have 2 parcels of land, one that we own outright and one that we are paying off. And the city has the title subject to our ability to meet our payment. So when would you anticipate that assignment would be necessary?
I honestly don't. I just thought it'd be a good flexible thing to have. And I think one of our prior agreements had that assignability feature in it. And so if for some reason, we decided that later, we really wanted the city to step in for whatever reason to finish this part of the project out, but we have that option. but I don't envision us doing that at this point.
Yeah, so would it have to be specifically assignable to the city?
Well, the reason I say that is, yeah, I think it should be the city, but if there's someone else, you can leave it open, assignable to someone else. I just said the city because I don't want to go through this process again. And what if the city came back and said, no, we need to do our own master plan or something? I think that would be another year. And so I don't think anyone wants to take any longer than necessary. I just said thought it'd be a good safety thing to have.
Jake, is it possible just to say that the contract may be assignable by the district at their?
Yeah, currently the district is silent, the agreement is silent as to the district's right to assign. It requires the consultant's assignment would require district approval. So we would add language that the agreement may be assigned by the district board, something to that effect. So it would always come back to this board prior to assignment.
Yeah, if I can keep it open like that, I don't have the problem with the assignability provision. I just don't necessarily want to say who we're going to assign it to.
Yeah,
We don't have to.
we'll keep it general, and it always come back to the board either way.
Okay, that'd be fine. Yes. That'd be fine. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or any questions? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote on this motion, please?
Yes.
I want to, Rick, Mr. Chaffee had his finger up there. I know it's out of order, but so it's up to you whether you want to recognize.
No, it's fine, Mr. Chaffee. You're always welcome to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Sorry, sir.
Yep. No. Well, we're going to try to avoid it. We have to ask some tough questions, but yeah, no, we'll make it as. Oh, yeah, no, it's not going to be, yeah. It won't be Yes, will do. Thank you.
Okay, Joanne, you may continue. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Whoa.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption, but yes, I support the motion.
And Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Look
We
forward to
really
working with
look
y'all.
forward to working with all of you
Absolutely.
and getting this project underway.
We do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our second item of business is Zero Empty Spaces presentation by Mr. Snow and Mr. Martineau. Welcome.
All right. Thank you for having us. My name is Evan Snow. It's my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau. We are local arts advocates, community builders, creative entrepreneurs, and creative problem solvers that, amongst many other things we do, came up with an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate to make affordable artist studio spaces for artists to be able to create in outside of their home affordably. We've done this successfully in 22 locations over the last 2 years in 4 counties, as far south as Miami International Mall with Simon Property Group in Doral, up to North Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens with Styles and Legacy Place, and also here in Boca Raton and Boca Center. We are friendly with Commissioner O'Rourke, who sought us out initially to bring this concept to the city of Boca Raton, and then presented us with the opportunity or conversation that the community center. Yep.
You speak into
Oh,
the mic,
sorry
please,
about that.
because they're having a hard time online.
No problem. So Commissioner O'Rourke mentioned to us that there's the community center at Patch Reef Park that potentially is going to be underutilized or potentially have part of it being vacant. So instead of it doing no good for the community, our initiative seeks to take underutilized spaces and vacant spaces to do something positive for the community. As you can see, as we've done here and outlined in the presentation that you guys have a paper copy of. So we're glad to bring this initiative forward. I know there's some questions and considerations. We generally do this with private entities and developers. This would be the first time that we'd be considering and exploring doing this with the city in a public utility, but we're glad to explore and consider it and see how we can make something positive happen out of this park.
Generally lease the properties from these commercial entities?
Yes, we do enter into a lease agreement. We assume all liability for the space. We provide our own certificate of insurance for general liability for the space. We assume the liability for the water and the electric utilities. So we take that off of the property owner and developers, P&L statements. So they're not responsible for those expenses any longer. And then we work to keep the space open and active daily, generally between the hours of 12 and 5 p.m. Though artists generally have 24-hour access to come and go as they please. We understand this is in the park and the park would have certain parks hours, but we would have the space open and active daily. So it would provide an additional activation and benefit to the park, to the community, and to the artists as well. And we've found immense benefits from collaborations and activations. School beautification projects, public art projects have come out of putting artists together in spaces to collaborate and do good through artwork and collaboration.
Have you looked at the particular property that you're talking about and how many artists could you fit in there? And what are the sizes of their spaces? And give us a little bit more information.
So yeah, we were able to take a look at that community center, and I think we could probably fit about 20 or so artists in that space. As I mentioned, we would have it there open on a daily basis.
What about, if they're doing something, maybe with blow torches or something like that, what's the insurance? Who holds the insurance on this and how's that handled?
Yeah, so we will hold liability insurance for obviously to the property and to the city, but we don't allow certain things within the space. So they can't use spray paint in the space. It's only really for visual art. So acrylic paint, drawing, oil paints, but nothing like blow torches or anything that requires fire is not allowed in this space.
Mr. Horowitz, since this is a lease situation, is this something that we can even entertain?
As the board is certainly aware, we have some limitations in the context of leasing our property. So we may have some challenges. I'd like to maybe learn a little more about what the vendor is proposing. We could potentially come up with some creative way, but based on what I'm hearing, we know we have some challenges in the context of leasing our space.
So some of our spaces, so we are in certain spaces in lease agreements, and in certain spaces there are license agreements. So it all really depends on how the property has done it, but some are leases and some are licenses.
Or potentially an operator agreement where we would effectively be the operator and administrator of the space to administer artists as part of the program to work in the space as a community type of space with Zero Empty Spaces, branding and marketing and facilitation of that activity.
And
I think Mr. Engel has a question for you.
Yeah, I was thinking of a workaround. Possibly, well, let me go back a step. The work of these artists would be, after completed, then up for sale or donation or.
So it's available for sale. Some of them create as just their creative outlet, and some of them do create, professionally to sell.
Okay, because what I was thinking of is maybe some kind of commission agreement where we would get 10% of the sale price or 2% or some figure to be determined. And that would serve in lieu of a formal lease agreement or a license agreement. I'm not too sure whether we can we do a license agreement?
Well, you may recall, commissioners, several weeks ago, months ago now, we put together a memorandum outlining a number of different options for the district to not convey, but allow a third party to otherwise use our property. The focus at the time was Ocean Breeze, but the gentleman mentioned a license agreement and an operator agreement. Those were two of the options that we actually outlined in our memorandum. So they may be a way to structure some deal along these lines with one of those two tools. Just keeping in mind that there may also be a procurement side of this discussion. I don't know if these gentlemen are the only folks in town that provide this type of service, but if this is something the district wanted to pursue, there may be a need to look to the market to see whether or not there was a competitive component of this discussion to ensure that there was a level playing field to all vendors in the community who may be providing something similar.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, they mentioned 24-hour access to the facility. That wouldn't be possible here, obviously, because the park rangers lock up and it wouldn't be accessible 24 hours, right?
Correct. In the instance of the park, we would be respective of the hours and the access. And we have some mall properties that do operate within mall hours, and the mall is closed at such a period of time at which the artists don't have access. But generally, our spaces in retail settings and lifestyle centers, strip malls, and so on and so forth, they generally have 24-hour access given the accessibility of the space.
Okay. And then another concern would be like summertime. What if we decided to use this space like for summer camp, or if we needed to use it for summer camp or something like that, it wouldn't be available. So that would be, me and Brianne were discussing it earlier. So that would be another concern. That would be there, I guess, just in case we needed to use the space. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's certainly a consideration. We have in some of our spaces where some of the artists do kind of conduct classes as well. So they might be a way to collaborate, whether that summer camp may be an art specific or art related summer camp. The artists there usually do a lot of different things like that. So it could be something that it could be a collaboration where the artists are the teachers for the summer camp that might be art related. That's something that we do at some of our properties currently, where we kind of work with the shopping centers, something like that, with regards to classes for our kids and stuff like that. So I think there's opportunity there for collaboration if it is art specific, I would say.
And we understand that a portion of the building is still going to be used by the city or by your department as an office. So we understand there's certain restrictions, limitations, and collaborations that are going to have to be made. We obviously also understand that it's within the confines of a park. So we discussed background checks for artists and some type of other, security protocols and things that we would put into consideration given the arrangement.
What I was going to suggest is that I can meet with city staff to talk about how something like this would impact the facility if the board wanted to pursue something like this. And then we could, put together an RFP for the board to review. I'm not saying by the next meeting, but in the coming months, we could put together something if the board wanted to look at that, if there was a way to use it, they will have a need for summer. The problem with summer camps right now is that the schools are kind of closing up and not letting the city use them as much because of COVID. So there is some concern about that. Eventually that building will be something else anyway. So I could talk to the city staff and see what the restrictions and what kinds of things they're going to need out of that facility in the coming year. And then come back to this board and talk about an RFP if that's something you wanted to pursue.
Commissioner Ernst, you look like you have a question.
Question is kind of a statement. Yeah, I went out there with Brianne and the two gentlemen here, and to be honest with you, when you go out to the community center, my question is, what's your alternative? We were talking about, it's closing it down. And honestly, when you open the 1970 blinds with floor to ceiling windows, it's one of the most beautiful spaces that is so underutilized. It's just ridiculous. So I think it's a shame to have a space closed and empty and not utilize it in some way or form or try something. And to me, the concept here was pretty good, because if they don't like it or we don't like it, you can do a short-term, we call it lease, but an arrangement, 9 months and you're out, you leave and we're all good. But I honestly think that it could work. And I think that the idea of having artists in the park is a new feature. As far as kids' involvement, I do, strongly encourage some kind of, I know at my children's school, they always have some kind of security of IDing, and I require the same. But I think that you go down the path of just trying it out. It's that whole Rutherford Center could be better utilized, better programmed, and it could be an opportunity just to try something out. And if it doesn't work, we just cancel it. But I think let's pursue it. Let Brianne work out some of the details with the city. Ultimately, I do think you should go out to RFP of some form and see what else, other options are there. But I don't think you're going to find anything as good as this right now. Who's going to pick up some of our costs and as a turn, an alternative of just closing it. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Mr. Rollins, did you have a comment?
Matter of fact, I did. The comment, opens up with the fact that, this is James A. Rutherford is a community center. And I've taken Taekwondo in this back when the community service was operating. I don't know what happened except with COVID probably eliminated the possibility of having any classes there. I think we're going too far too fast on this because we haven't even discussed how we want to do P3s. And I think that it's setting a precedent if we go forward with an agreement that we really haven't fully explored, whether it's a licensing agreement, whether it's we cannot do leases as what we've learned before. And we don't know what other options that Brianne had mentioned. And I think that it was mentioned before that there's other activities that have been in there. And I really think that until we have an opportunity to vacate the premises, make sure there's no other opportunity that comes up from us from a recreational standpoint for the community. I know we've supported art recently, $25,000 worth of art that we've supported. So it's not that I'm opposed to that at all. I just feel like, it's a community center. It should be available to the community. And I think until we explore the possibility of restarting classes in there for the community, whether there's summer classes or whether there's Taekwondo was an ongoing 12-month of the year program. And I think there were some other activities that took place in there. I for one, if the majority wants to do it, I think it has to be an RFP being released out there for us to even consider it. But I can tell you that from my standpoint, where I sit, I see it first as a community center. And I think turning over public property to a private venture, whether it's a nonprofit or not, is not what we do. It doesn't fit our legislative enabling legislation. Finding a workaround may be necessary when we get into our big project, but we're not there yet. So I appreciate the concept, and as they said, they're using vacant commercial real estate, and that makes a lot of sense. But when you're giving away, in some sense, property that's owned by the public, I'm not feeling real good about it. So that's my objection.
Let me just weigh in just for a second. I would like to first off let Brianne explore what the city might need for camps and things like that. And then if they say no, then we should maybe entertain other options that have possibilities. Craig, did you have something you wanted to say?
It's going to happen, Brianne, on November 30th.
What's November 30th?
That
Oh, it's
place
closing
is
November
closed.
1st. It closes November 1st, November 30th.
November
It's got,
1st. So November 1st, it's closed. So, Bob, I think that's a big deal, so you got a programming program. Let's go out there and do something, because I'm telling you, programming the way it was done in the past is not what it is today. And so you got to look for others to run some of that programming. And that is just, I don't care whether it's art or even the science exploratorium. We spend a lot of taxpayer money every year bringing in the Oregon group. We lost all the volunteers who built that playground out there from many years ago because it's a city-run program. I'm saying get someone else to kind of run this program, whether it's art, whether it's science. Get people involved. What does it matter if people are in there using it? I think it's a great thing, and that's an option. It's just an option, and so otherwise it's closed and it's dead.
I have a really wonderful option I'd like to present to you, Craig.
Sure.
Do you know about the SABRE organization?
Sure.
Okay. Do you know where they meet? Does anybody have an idea where the board meets?
You know, they should be meeting at FAU because they got a 600,000 a year for that. So-
You're off base there. You're on the line there.
So-
They've been meeting in my office,
Mhm.
and that's fine. It's very convenient for me.
Yeah.
But I've had other sports groups that need a home where they can hold their meetings. I can't think of a better place than that if you want to keep this as a community-related activity, whether it's flag football, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's the soccer program. I think the youth organizations do need a place to meet and conduct their business. We meet, the Soccer Association meets once a month. And it would be great to have a place that everybody could call home where they could plan on having a meeting, whether it's Boca Jets lacrosse.
Yeah.
I just think there's other opportunities that we haven't begun to explore and haven't begun to talk about. I mean, maybe this is going to be an option that we would consider. I don't know, but I'm just telling you is that we haven't looked at other options yet. And until we do, I don't think we should commit ourselves to anybody.
Well, that's fine, but I guess what I'm saying is that we can meet in this room. This is an updated room. You're either gonna spend a lot of money to update that place over there to make it usable out of 1970, or it's scheduled to close.
I know it's scheduled to close because it wasn't serving the needs of the public.
So
So-
you're gonna staff it for two. You're gonna have a
I'm not
full-time
gonna,
staff and-
I'm not gonna, it's already gonna be staffed by the Rangers. The Rangers are gonna be there. I presume somebody's gonna be there to open and close the place. So let's don't be close-minded to other opportunities.
I'm with you, but listen, let's be realistic here, Bob. When I went over there, it was temperature set at 68 degrees. There's 5 people coming in there to buy beach parking permits. The place is dead empty.
Listen,
It's not like-
don't talk to me about the way things are. Let's talk about the way things will be. If that's the way they were operating that over there, it's a good thing we did close that down.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there are other opportunities that we need to examine before we take a piece of community property and turn this over to another organization, whether they're nonprofit or not. I think that the recreation community should have an opportunity to take a look at this, and maybe Brianne can talk to the city, and let's see before we commit to ourselves. That's all I'm saying.
That's fine. And that's the purpose of Brianne, to talk to the city and flush out whoever needs extra space, where they could be fit with extra space, but there's redundancy.
And I
So
think we
that's-
need to have a real thorough discussion about whether we're where we are in these P3s and when we will take advantage of those opportunities, because you start going down this road and then you start doing this with one organization, and next thing you know, you're going to have others wanting to do the same thing.
Well, but this board is the board that makes that decision. So I would tell you that it's a better opportunity to try it out now than not. Then at least you have that option to do it, and you've learned something from it and doing nothing. In the meantime, you have a closed building, and
That doesn't bother me because closed billing means no expenses going on, Greg. I say, let's flesh this thing out rather than jumping into it before we've examined everything.
the RFP part of it is flushing that things out combined. I think we are doing that, Bob. And so I'm happy to make the motion.
Stop lecturing me, Greg.
Well,
All right.
I'm not-
Stop.
Gentlemen,
Yes, you are. Yes,
gentlemen.
you are.
So
I'm just saying that there's other opportunities, and you're somewhat agreeing, but you're also being a little bit more adamant about this for whatever reason I'm unaware of. But I think that
you
let's
can
do
vote
it.
no.
Well, I
That's
plan,
fine.
I plan to vote
I
no.
think Mr. Engel has something he wants to say too.
Okay, first, boys behave. Second, in order for this to become a community center once again, and Bob, I think your idea, the first question that came to my mind is why these groups never thought to come to us or to the city before this to use the space. But be that as it may, what we would have to look at is what it's going to cost to make the space usable. And that applies to whether we use it for community groups such as Sabre, or we use it for Zero Space or anybody else. From what I've seen, the property is in serious need of an upgrade. Pieces, literally pieces coming down out of the ceiling type of situation. which is why we're closing it, because it would cost a lot to upgrade it. Am I correct? Excuse me. Am I correct? Yeah.
I will tell you, I will tell you this, Steve, when we were looking at a master plan for this property was coming down. Okay.
Right, right.
It-
Okay.
And it wouldn't bother me if we did that same thing right now.
Okay, so,
It's not falling apart. There was a hole in the ceiling, like I don't know how long ago that was. It was like 5 years ago that was repaired and it's been functional and safe. It's a safe facility. It's just outdated and the rooms aren't functional. It doesn't fit recreational programming the way recreation is programmed today. So it's outdated, it's antiquated, it's not getting a lot of use. Nobody's booking spaces of it. That's why we opted to close it, because we can save 150,000 a year in staffing. If we want to look at other options, I'm happy to go talk to the city and talk about what they see using the facility for, what the options are, and if the board decides down the road you want to do an RFP to see what's out there.
yeah, well, I think we need to go by the book, and part of that book is doing an RFP to see what's out there. Not only from an art standpoint, but other, other areas we might want to explore. But the thing that we all keep coming back to, it's not really an elephant. It's more like, I don't know, maybe a rhinoceros in the room, is we have a prohibition against conveyance of property in any shape, manner, or form. So whatever we do with this property has to be addressed, that has to be addressed. And what we also have to look at and give a priority to are community organizations that may want to take advantage of this property in its current form. There are a lot of things here. I mean, if you have meetings in there 3 nights a week, what do you do with the property the other 4 days, or the other 20 hours of those days where the property isn't being used? You still have to heat it and clean it and all the other good stuff that goes with that. So there are a lot of things here. There's, whether we go along with zero space, and I think it's a nice idea, but whether we do zero space or we use it as meeting space for community organizations, we've got to be able to take everything into account and figure out what our bottom line is. What is it going to cost us? What's the utility to groups? And does the property need any updates in order to be serviceable? And that's all I got.
Can I make a brief comment?
Absolutely, please.
So, when we started, as Evan mentioned, we're arts advocates, and this had started as an initiative based on artists in our community, where we're from in Fort Lauderdale, and other areas that were looking for affordable artist studios to work out of. And throughout the country, there aren't very many affordable artist studios at all. And the ones that are affordable are either in a really, really rundown area that's not very safe, or it's run by a nonprofit with a very, very heavy judging criteria, meaning that the artists that do get into these nonprofit spaces at that affordable rate have to have a very long CV or resume of art exhibits and things that they've done. So it's not really catered towards up and coming artists or artists that kind of aren't in galleries. Our spaces and the artists that occupy it are all local to the community. So that's why we have so many spaces in so many different areas, because the artists that come to the space are living 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away. And some artists move to a location because it's closer to their house as well. So it is very much focused on the local community. That's why I think a lot of the spaces that we do get are coming from city commissioners, mayors, making those introductions, because it is the local community coming out there. And the friends and family of these artists that are in the spaces are also the people that are coming to visit the space as well. So it does have a very big community aspect of it. And a lot of the artists that are in the space, they're really through a really large demographic of people, from age to ethnicity to country of origin. So you have a lot of artists, even in their 60s and 70s, and this being their first artist studio ever, because they've always been painting at home in their 2nd bedroom or their 3rd bedroom. And this also gives them an opportunity to be exposed in a much bigger way to the general public, and to be able to get people in the community to be more aligned with the abilities of local artists to discover local artists that are in their community. And it also gives them an opportunity for, making additional revenue and so on and so forth. There've also been a lot of collaborations that have come out of the space. Right now, we're doing a fundraiser with the Palm Beach Symphony, where the artist painted 32 old and used instruments, and they're auctioning it off to raise funds for the symphony, and they're having some at the Cravats Center. And that all came out of artists in the space collaborating, knowing someone from the symphony, and something coming out of it. So there's a lot of collaborations that kind of come out of this space. We've had some stuff in Miami as well, working with the museum, History Miami, and different things in Tallahassee, and a lot of different things just being a venue that the community can come to, and local artists that are part of the community can be in to create an exhibit.
You have a relationship with any board such as ours or community building that is owned by the taxpayers?
No, this would be like the only venture. We've presented in front of several cities. I mean, our location in Sarasota came out of a presentation very much like this, and members of the board happen to own property, and that's how we got that property there. And a lot of that's kind of how a lot of cities are kind of asking us to come to the city, because they find it as a way to be able to connect with the community in a really meaningful way, and then give the artists in the community an opportunity to kind of come out of their house where they've been for many years, and to be able to expose their work to people.
Do you need the entire building, or would one big room be, a part of the building be satisfactory?
A part of the building would be satisfactory. I mean, we have spaces right now anywhere from a space that holds 3 people up to a space that holds 24 people. We've taken over old Payless stores, old banks, old restaurants. So the space is not so much the concern. I mean, our main goal is to really be able to provide these affordable artist studio spaces for artists in various communities, for them to be able to have an affordable place to create. How many people we fit in there is not necessarily so much of a big deal. I guess we'd have to figure out, because we pay the utilities for the space, if it's a shared space, how that would work. But I mean, certainly something that we're flexible with.
Jake, is it possible for you to draft a RFP that would be appropriate for us, because you'll have to address how that lease that's going to be set up. It's got to be a concession agreement, a license agreement. So if you're drafting an RFP, it's going to have to address that matter, would it not?
Yeah, it would be somewhat of a unique situation, just thinking it through, because we would have an RFP soliciting vendors that would be performing a service similar to what these gentlemen are describing, but the license agreement would be between the district and a third party, an artist who is seeking to come in. We could certainly draft a license agreement to that effect. What we could do, and we'd certainly work with Brianne if it was the board's direction, is have a form agreement that could be affixed to the RFP, and artists could then decide whether or not they had any interest in entering into that type of relationship. But it wouldn't be the artists responding to the RFP, presumably. It would be companies much like the one that we're hearing from this evening, who then seek out and contract with artists. So the answer is yes, but it would be somewhat of a creative approach to procurement.
Well, in order to have assurance that we have the proper insurance, it'd have to be with this organization
Correct.
rather than the individual.
That's correct.
Is that a possibility?
It is, and the RFP would reflect the insurance requirements.
Okay, of the individual or of the organization?
Both.
Both. Okay. I would then, Madam Chair, recommend that we give Jake that authorization to set up such an RFP. If that's the mood of the board.
Is that a motion, Mr. Rollins?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Well, it just depends on, Craig, how friendly you're going to be with this friendly amendment.
Sorry, my fault. My amendment would be follow through with let Brianne talk to the city first, because you may get to a no-go right there. But she's she's got to go through the process of what you can do and can't do with the city. I'm open to the concept. Is there any valid use that we could, it is a community. Look, I'm all for community taking it.
I
and
got
running
it. I got it. Listen to this.
Yeah.
If after, the motion will be amended to say that after Breanne has examined the future possibilities of the community using this, the James A. Rutherford Center, and there being no usage that would prevent us from releasing an RFP, that we do so with addressing the licensing or whatever provisions that we need to make it a legitimate lease.
And an agreement that the city zoning allows. So whatever that is.
Well, I would think that would preempt anything that we would do. I mean, and that should
Okay.
be included in your research to Brian. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Jacob, does Mr. Rollins have to withdraw the first motion?
I think that would be considered a substitute motion, the
Yes,
latter item.
he just amended.
Which would take precedence.
Okay. Commissioner Wright, do you have any questions about this? Okay. Any other questions, any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
If we could just make one clarification. Before
Absolutely.
the cart gets too far before the horse. We are not a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We do sublease the space to the artists at a fair and affordable rate. And those funds are obviously used to subsidize the utilities, the build out, the marketing, and the operating expenses of the program. $2 a square foot is generally the nonprofit rate that these organizations would rent spaces to artists for. But we do not rely on grant funding. We do not rely on donations. We don't rely or adhere to a board to go through excessive amounts of red tape. If we decide and determine that we want to activate a property and do so to provide this benefit to the artist, we do so. But just so that there's clarification, so that there's not a surprise later, we do derive the proceeds to cover the build out and those operating expenses to keep these spaces open by charging $2 a square foot to the artist, which we subdivide spaces. We make 100 square foot space. They pay $200 a month. They pay a small security deposit. And that's what allows the program to continue operating, because we're not independently wealthy people that can just do this because we love the arts forever. So just wanted to
Well,
clarify.
that could have an impact, couldn't it, Mr. Horowitz? Because they do lease out our property that we aren't allowed to lease.
Well, no, a couple things. One, the comment that the gentleman just made, it really is the basis for the need to go out to a competitive procurement as part of this process. The fact that they are a for-profit business, which I certainly appreciate and understand, but there may be other businesses out there that could offer a similar opportunity, and we need to ensure as a public agency that we're providing a level playing field to the entire community should anyone else have a similar interest. Whatever relationship this company or another company were to have with the artists would be constrained by the same limitations that we have. In other words, if we were to enter into a license agreement with this particular company, they would then need to use a similar tool, a sub-license, to engage the other artists who may be utilizing that space. Because whatever constraints we have, if we were to license that facility out, the licensee would have these same constraints.
Mr. Rollins, did you have your hand up?
I'm just going to say, Jake, that's why you get the big bucks. Yeah, well, I think that's an important factor for us to know in this process.
And we'll work with Breanne with her conversations with the city, and to the extent that we coordinate an RFP, we'll bring that back for your further consideration.
All righty. Thank you very much for coming out and giving us something to think about.
I appreciate the time and opportunity.
Okay, our next item of business is user fees found on page 38 of your agenda packet. Breanne, would you start us off, please?
Commissioners, we last discussed this, I think it was August 30th when we discussed user fees. And we wanted to come back with some additional numbers on tennis centers and some of the breakdown of those fees. So that's included in your agenda packets. On page 47, that's after all the proposed fees for this current fiscal year are listed. So we brought this back for discussion. There was some question about the non-resident fees at the Swim and Racket Center. And I think that was the bulk of the comments, but I'll let Commissioner Rollins chime in here.
I was the guilty party asking for this to review again. With the exception, and Brianne was kind enough to give me the user fee changes on other facilities. The only one that is irrational is the user fees for swim and racket. Most of the user fees are within 121% for non-residents over the resident fees, whereas they're substantially higher than that with swim and racket. And so one must ask the question, how did that happen? And since I was the only one on this commission that was involved in that process when we purchased it, I probably have the closest rationale to that. And that's basically one, when the property was purchased, it was purchased with ad valorem revenue generated by both the residents of the city and the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Parks District. It wasn't our flavor that we wanted to do anything to change the non-resident fee of the individuals there. And I don't know the numbers that how many we had there, but the fee that we're charging the non-residents is the same fee that was being charged everybody that played there, because they didn't have a resident, non-resident issue. They just had, it was a for-profit membership organization. And it was decided that we would keep the non-resident rate, keep the rate at the non-resident rate that the people were already paying. I'm sorry, let me say that again. Keep the rate unchanged over what was being paid. Give the residents a discount because they were the ones that had actually paid the dollars to acquire the facility. Since that time, whenever I've made public meetings like at the Rotary clubs or other organizations, there's always one or two in there that are non-residents that are paying that higher fee, and they know what the fee is for the residents that live within the city. And this rate's been unchanged. And if you look at the other rates for non-residents, you can see this is totally out of line. Now, I'm not suggesting that we match the 21% increase, but I am suggesting at some point we need to be realistic about that. I had Brianne check with the tennis facility to see what activities there's taking place over there and whether or not if we dropped our resident fee, the non-resident fee, whether there would be any massive humanities coming over to join our facility. I don't believe that's going to be the case. If we were to, I believe that, Brianne, if we were to drop this to the, based on the current number of participants, or drop the fee to that same percentage increase that the city has on other non-residents, it would cost us about $12,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, 12,000 a year. So that would make your $1,119 non-resident rate would be $924. Your family membership would go from $1,598 to $1,320. The junior would go from $320 to $264. So based on sales and projections, that's about 12,000 a year in revenue.
That's provided that we didn't add any new non-residents to this roster. And with the, are we lighting some other courts over there?
We are going to light some. That's actually to meet the demands, current demands that they have on the facility. We're going to light some additional courts this next year.
And what did the city staff say about the usage of the facility as far as, available time and so forth?
They don't have a lot of, there's actually some concern if we do get more non-residents that it would limit some of the residency's ability to get courts.
Okay, all right. Well, I brought this up and I thought it was important that I flesh it out to the point where we knew what the numbers were. I'm not going to make a motion that we change that for the simple reason that I don't want to cause any of our residents a challenge in getting court time. But I do think that the number that the folks that have been loyal to us, and I say loyal to us, the people who have been paying this non-resident fee have been doing so I don't know that I have heard any complaints about that lately, except that and I don't know how it compares to any other tennis facility. I think next year I'll be better prepared to talk about that because I think next year I would seriously like to see some changes in that. But given where we are at this point in time, I'm not uncomfortable leaving it the way it is, but I think it's still it's overreach on our part on the fees.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or any comments? Mr. Ernst?
Chart that you gave us, Brianne, is that when you say percent increase, that's just the differential between the two rates?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And the non-resident rate has always been, non-resident means you're not in the district. You're nowhere, you're not a taxpayer, nowhere. So, and resident is you're in the district. So these folks, if you're outside the district, it's sort of like the beach parking pass. You can't get one. And if you do, you're going to pay a lot for it. It's free. It's free. Yeah, city. That's right. So, okay. No, I mean, I guess I defer to consistency and rate to the city of what other parks. You know, someone's got to be doing this at some point. And some things seem low, some things seem high. I mean, for a non-resident rate, it does seem high. I don't disagree with you. But our population's growing too, so I think it'd look kind of odd. We just raised our taxes to lower it for the non-resident. That's all.
It's the same material, and maybe not as nice as Boca Raton Tennis Center, which is a city memorial courts, I used to call them, because I think they've replaced their clay. We're in need of a replacement of clay over there. So for that reason, you know, $12,000 is not going to go very far in terms of what we'd have to do to replace all that clay. But to Steve's point, you know, and your point about, you know, we're raising our millage rate and we're dropping our user fees. The optics are not that good. But on the other hand, if you look at it from the standpoint of the city's philosophy of how they charge for non-resident rates, we're way overboard. And the only reason we are is because when the property was initially acquired, we didn't change the rates over there for folks that lived outside the district, but we did give the folks inside the district a rate reduction because it was their ad valorem revenue that had purchased it. And that was the philosophy at the time. And that was then 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I forget. So in that time, over time, I think we've lost non-residents from the number that we had originally. But I don't know what that was, and I don't know what that number is today, Greg. So,
but if you lowered it, it's not significant.
No.
That's the point. But I think a
have a
bigger
number?
question, Bob, though, is when they get to the Boca Country Club, I assume they're going to put play courts and redo stuff out there. I'm expecting the rates to be the same, or
the same as what we're charging.
yes, we're all the same market, so it should be. I would not.
Then Memorial should be this. We should be using Memorial's rates then because it's lower.
Okay.
You know, for a non-resident at Memorial, I don't have those numbers handy, but they're only 21% higher than the resident rate. Is that right, Brianne?
For Boca Raton Tennis Center, it's about 120% difference between resident and non-resident. Patch Reef is the same, about 120%, and then Racket Center is 167%. What I was going to suggest is that this year, we're doing the resurfacing of the courts, installing the new lights, so we can see how that impacts the play. And as people gravitate towards pickleball, we may see more holes opening up this year in play, and we can look at the rate again next year.
You know, I would really, and to Greg's point too, if the city at Boca Country Club does clay courts, that would be an even greater incentive to me to look at our non-resident rate compared to what they have at Memorial and what they put over at Boca Raton Tennis Center, so that we are in the same market, as you said, and it makes sense to be consistent. Okay.
To me, next cycle for fees and user fees, that's a conversation with you and Michael to kind of sort out, and it should be pretty consistent across all of them. No one should be too far off. I mean, I get it. There's a value for living in the city and living in the district, and that should be reflected in lower fees. And of course, I'm a big proponent of for youth sports, keeping the fees as low as possible. Because you gotta have players on those different things, but they gotta be someone driving it from the city.
Okay,
And
so
Brian,
we will
th- yeah, I just want
revisit
to
that.
thank Brian for going through that and being patient enough to get all that data for me, and then have me do nothing about it.
Well, it's good information for us to have, and I think before budget season next year, we should really have some intense discussion about that. Raul?
I really don't want to make a big issue of it, and it's not a lot of money. I represent, obviously, the Boca Raton Pickleball Club. Our only comment that I've had from people, and I should have been here earlier to discuss this, is that the residents are being charged $2 a visit at Sugar Sand, where previously to the previous 4 years, we weren't charged anything. Here's the deal, we're getting charged $2, not a problem, but the non-residents fee did not go up from 5. And so there's kind of a discrepancy. We felt like, if we're going to be charged $2 for playing at Sugar Sand, perhaps the non-residents should also be increased. And so
For how much time, Raul?
it's all morning. It's 4
Okay.
hours. It's a long time. So we're not complaining about the 2 hours. The $2. What we're complaining about is that there should be an incremental increase to the non-residents. That's all. I feel like even our resident and non-resident fees everywhere throughout the city in terms of pickleball is very, very fair. I just want to bring it up to the council, the commission rather. I don't know if it's a city issue or if it's your issue. Just want to bring it up. That's all. Thank you.
Raul?
Total annual fee that you can pay instead of paying $2 or $5 every time?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
It's really cheap. It's I think it's $36 for 6 months for a resident. So it really converts almost $5 of 50 cents a visit. But some of my folks are saying, hey, why did our fee, why is my drop-in fee $2 where it was 0 and the non-resident is 5? We want people to play pickleball. So I'm just expressing what folks are asking me. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, time for approval of payroll and invoices. Do I hear a motion, Mr. Ernst?
Make a motion for approval of payroll and invoices. I guess it's just, payroll and invoices for $1,077,033.41. So that includes the April 2021 O&M from the city of Boca Raton.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Executive Director Harms, would you start it off with the reports and discussion items, please?
Commissioners, I just have one item tonight. Our carousel over at Sugar Sand Park is now 16 years old, which is hard to believe. It came here when Wilma arrived in 2005. Staff has been working really hard to keep it up and keep up the repairs. They've been piecing it together with different contractors that they have with the city. What we'd like to do at this point is, on our side, because the procurement process would go much quicker, is to go out for an RFP to get proposals from companies who actually service these types of, it's considered an amusement park ride by the state. So it's sanctioned in that way. So we'd like to go out for an RFP to see what we can find as far as an ongoing maintenance company to keep up with the carousel, keep up with the repairs. The repairs are growing in
You guys
number
okay?
as the carousel ages.
I'm almost done.
So anyway, I'm looking tonight for a motion or approval to go ahead and put together an RFP so we can see what's out there and see if we can find a company. And this is a company that would just service the carousel ongoing for different things that it needs, electrical, all kinds of different things that happen with it.
Do I
Madam
hear a
Chair,
motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we go out for an RFP for a qualified person to do restorative work to our carousel at Sugar Sand Park.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do the roll call vote, please?
Yes.
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 Thank you, commissioners. The only other items I had were, we received 4 proposals for the Boca Chica maintenance contract, for the ongoing contract for that. So we're evaluating those staff-wise, and we'll come back with a recommendation at our next meeting. And then also for another agenda item at our next meeting was the ranking of the proposals that were submitted for the RFQ for continuing services with an architect engineer. And that's all I have.
Thank you. District Council, Mr. Horowitz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything further this evening, but I do appreciate it.
Commissioner Wright, let's start off with you for commissioner reports.
I have nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Engel?
Ditto.
Ernst?
I just want to apologize to Mr. Rollins. He had a sore subject with me and I went after him and I apologize.
I didn't realize that was a sore subject, Craig.
Well, I didn't like wasting time with the space and let him try to do something with it, that's all.
Well, the good thing is about me and you is that when we leave the meeting, it's over until we have another opportunity.
Another
to-
opportunity.
yeah.
I appreciate your
But,
understanding.
Yeah, no, listen, it's good to air those, and airing it with, with real fever on the subject is,
We're passionate.
passionate is a better word. I'm all about that because, I can be passionate about things, but, and I think it's healthy conversation. So no offense was taken. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah.
No,
No,
I am
they-
not.
they-
Mr.
they-
Rollins, did you have any reports?
Yeah, I've been amazed at what we've been able to do with our Zoom meetings and looking at the back of the consultant's ball spot. I didn't realize we could do that with this meeting. So, and then isolating on me like you're doing now, it's like, hey, this is good stuff. I mean, is that you doing all this, Melissa? All right. Well, you've been trained well by the man sitting right next to you, but now I have nothing further to add.
Hey, I have a couple of things. You all received a letter requesting that one of the P3 seekers would like to meet with our attorney, Mr. Gorin. What is your pleasure, commissioners? I'd like to have you weigh in on this.
Madam Chairman, I think we've all been solicited at one time or another by any number of people who want to do something with ocean breeze. We have a contract now with, or soon to be with an architectural firm. My personal opinion is just to defer any of these until we're further along in the project and then we know what we want. I think was this the one where they were offering to buy the property, sell the property or give the property to the city so they could buy it? Is this the?
And the word swap came up, but I
Okay.
don't know what we would get in return for a swap.
Yeah, well, I just really think that it's a little premature for us to be having these sidebar discussions. I know we've got First Tee, we've got other individuals who want to talk with us, and I'm receptive to all of those ideas. But there are other people who are not coming forward and will come forward when we start this process and public hearings and so forth. And I just think it's a little premature for us to be making any commitments until we know where we're going with this project. And so that's my feeling.
Mr. Ernst?
I don't think the attorney-to-attorney conversation is way premature. This is, let the process serve itself out. But at the same token, I'm okay with any of us or Brianne, including Brianne specifically, meeting with people because you got to get the ideas, whatever they may be, and see what works or doesn't work. And some are going to work and some won't, and that's okay. It's just a conversation. But at the end of the day, we're really looking to our guidance with the roadmap of a master plan, and that will determine when and how it will
shape. It doesn't disqualify you from talking to anybody at all. I would continue to do so, but I think to try to bring it forward, it's not the appropriate time to do that. Yeah.
So we're all in agreement that they were asking to come to the meeting on the 1st of November to discuss this, but this is too premature in all of your opinions. Commissioner Wright, do you agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. On the same note, we all had a letter from Mr. Mistrata from First Tee, and I would just like for you all to see what First Tee is all about, because this isn't a for-profit, this is a 501c3, and they are very interested in helping us out with donors. And instead of us having to put more money in, they would bring the donors to us and would help us out. The First Tee up in West Palm Beach in Dyer Park is an impressive facility. It's well run and it serves the special needs community, the veterans, the youth, and other people who want to learn how to play golf and enjoy the game. So if you have time to meet with Mr. Mistrata, I would really, really encourage it, just so you got a better feeling going forward for just one of the opportunities that we might have for this property. And I have nothing else. Would you like to reiterate all the future agenda items, and then we'll get to Mr. Engel?
We will have a recommendation for the maintenance of Boca Chica, and we will also be ranking the RFQ proposals for the ongoing architect engineering contract.
Mr. Engel?
Adjourn.
Good. Thank you. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Ernst? Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. We'll see you on November 1st. You all take care.